Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtoto to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtoto to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 20th day of January, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I believe we're on page 672. Verse 18 on page 672. Okay. Jnanam, Jneyam, Parigyata, Trivadha, Karmachodana, Karanam, Karmakarteti, Trivadha, Karmasangha, Jnanam, Jneyam, Parigyata, Trivadha Karma Chodana, kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha jnanam geyam parigyata trivadha karma chodana kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha jnanam geyam parigyata trivadha karma chodana kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha. Go ahead, tell us. Jnanam geyam parigyata trivadha karma chodana kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha jnanam geyam parigyata trivadha karma chodana kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha jnanam geyam parigyata trivadha karma chodana kadanam karma karteti trivadha karma sangraha. No one online? Okay. You know how to turn the heat on? Yeah, just keep it on maybe 10-15 minutes max. Set it at 72. Usually it goes on right away. I don't hear it. All right. There we go. Just see. Mystic power. All right. Jnanam, knowledge. Gyayam, the objective of knowledge. Parigyata, the knower. Trivadha, of three kinds. Karma, of work. Chodana, the impetus. Karanam, the senses. Karma, the work. Karta, the doer. Iti, thus. Trivadaha, of three kinds. Karma, of work. Sangraha, the accumulation. Translation. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. Purport. There are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has three elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized as a subtle form of work. Then work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological processes of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses, including the mind, which is the center of all the senses. The sum total of all the constituents of an activity are called the accumulation of work. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is quite an analysis. Why do we do anything? Why do we get up in the morning, you know? And why do we do all the things that we do in our waking life? Well, it begins with knowledge. There has to be some knowledge of an object that we want, we fear, we're interested in, something inspires us. And then comes this thinking, feeling, willing. You're thinking, but unless you're actually feeling like you want to do something based on that thought, you're not going to do anything. It'll just be one passing thought. There's a million passing thoughts that go through it and don't really get beyond just some vibration in the brain. There's a million things. But when one acts, then you want to have a relationship with something. It may be an idea, it may be a person, it may be a path that you want to follow to get to a goal, whatever it is. But there's some, as Prabhupada says, an inspiration there that causes us to act with the mind, the body, intelligence, to move toward more relationship with that object or that experience. So it's complicated. And we can see, if you analyze how Krishna consciousness systematically tries to reform or change what that inspiration is, what that motive is, what that object that we're moving for. And it's obviously knowledge is a very important part of it. If we have the right association and we're hearing and reading the knowledge that's been given to us in the Shastra, then and we're submissive, we're receiving it without mental static. All the things that we learned before, we say, well, that can't be true, and the doubts, and then boom, you may leave. But if you're submissive to the knowledge that comes, then that nourishes your faith, association with the faithful, and hearing, and then taking part in the process that goes so deep, the chanting, which you really can't analyze in terms of these things. It's a transcendental experience, but it will change the heart and change the objective of one's life, really, if you're fortunate. And you'll see, well, this is something that I really want to pursue. It's not really like anything I've seen before, but it's meeting me on a certain level that I want to know more about it, and I want to have some of the experiences that I see the devotees are having like that. So that's what it's very complicated, but it's really essential to to understand how activity takes place. I keep coming up with this verse. Prabhupada, I listen to lectures all the time, and he chants verses, and I think, God, I know that one, and then I have to go review because I don't review them enough. But there's this definition of someone who was liberated. Iha yasya hare dasye karmana manasa vicha gira. Karmana manasa gira nikalashvapyavastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. Now, jivan mukta refers to someone who's still on this plane physically, but is still a liberated person. Normally, you think that liberation means that, you leave your body and you don't come back in another body. Well, that's one aspect of liberation. But you can be liberated before you leave the body. And that happened with bhakti, you see. And then one liberation. That's not a motive. This famous verse, bhakti stvahi. This is I forgot it now, I remembered it. Right near the end of the Krishna Karnamrita, Bilvamangal, he offers this verse, which is very nice. He says, bhakti stvahi. So tvahi, immediately he's addressing Krishna. He's always he can't see, but he's always seeing Krishna within, So he's often directly addressing Krishna. Bhakti stvaihi stidatara bhagavan yadisyad daive nanak padati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmartha kama gatayak samayak patiksha. You heard that one before? So he said, my dear Lord, if one practices bhakti unto you, stidatara, very firm, determined bhakti, then he will get the fruit of that bhakti. And what is that? Mukti? No. A darshan of your beautiful Kaishura form. Bhakti, Bhagavan Yadi said, Daive nanak palati divya kishora murti. Your divine adolescent form will become visible to him. You'll see that. And as far as mukti is concerned, which is so much coveted by the impersonalists and the yogis, she's standing by the door with the Anjali. How can I serve you? And whatever I need for dharma and artha, because you got these four, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, they're also with her. You need a little artha, you need a little bhiksha in order to live, whatever. But so mukti becomes insignificant. It's not something you really aspire for. It's a byproduct of pure bhakti, which is very important to understand, because what's the point of spending your whole life trying to get liberation alone with no bhakti? You see, practically it's impossible. There's that verse Prabhupada would always quote, when Krishna is about to appear, Devaki is ready to give birth to Krishna. Then the demigods come and they're hidden in that dungeon somewhere, and they're offering these prayers, very nice prayers. And this is the most famous one on this subject. Ye nye adavindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhya aruha kutrena padam padam tata patantyado anadvita yushmarangaya. So they've been praising the devotees. And now this is anye, this is others. Besides the devotees, there's others. Ye anye adavindaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord. Vimuktamaninas, they think they're liberated. They think that they're liberated, the impersonalists. Tvayasta bhava, but they're averse to serving you, and their intelligence is not really purified yet. Avishuddha buddhaya. But still, by sheer force of will, a few can rise up to the plane of Brahman with severe austerities, because they don't have kirtan, they don't have association, all they have is their will, keep those senses under control, keep the mind on Brahman. I can't say how they do it. Most of them don't. But some do. So they said, Aruha kritrena. Kritrena, it's an onomatopoeia. You know what an onomatopoeia is? It sounds like what it means. Kritrena. That's not bhakti. It's nanda padada. No, kritrena. All right, let me think of that. So a few of them get up to the param padam, which is the Brahmajyoti. But then patantyado, they eventually fall down because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. Patantyado anadrita yushmadangriya. They don't have the worship. So that's the fate of the impersonalists. It's unnatural. We are persons. We are spiritual persons. We're not just particles of spirit to merge into the Brahmajyoti and be happy. We want to be reinstated in our Swarup. We just read this morning in the Bhagavad Gita class. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada quotes that line in the second canto, defining what bhakti is. And it doesn't just mean, no more birth, all these and that. It says, Muktir hitpa anyata rupam swarupena vibhastiti. Everything's about rup. Rupa means there's a person there. Muktir hitva anyata. You're giving up these other forms. This is one of them. All these forms we've had, even in one lifetime, we have so many forms as you grow, like Krishna says at the beginning of Gita. But all the other millions of forms we may have gone through, you're giving those up. No more. You're not going to be... So, hitva anyata rupa swarupena vyavastiti. And to be situated in one's swarup. We all have a swarup siddhi. It's a perfection. When you finally get free of all of the karma and the tendencies to be absorbed in material world, and you're wholly and solely remembering Krishna and relishing your eternal rasa with Krishna, even in his body that can happen. Then you're situated in your swarup, even though you may still be in your old body for a while, but internally you're living in that reality. And that was what Prabhupada was doing. And that's there in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila, the discussion with Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya. It's this idea of swarup. So how to get there? One has to change one's consciousness and also change one's activities. So that activity, by the knowledge you get, and then gayam, the objective of knowledge. So what did Lord Chaitanya come to preach, right? Vairagya vidya nidya bhakti yoga shikshartameka purushakvarana. Vairagya and vidya, and detachment and knowledge, they go together. The more you become knowledgeable of all the sambandha abhideya prayojana, who is God, who am I, what is this world, what is its constituents, and then from that knowledge, there's a method, the abhideya, the process by which you can actually realize it. You know it theoretically, if you have faith that it's true. This whole place, the whole world, the universe has been created by Krishna. He's out there. I'm his eternal servant. I have faith that that's true. You see? But how can I realize it? How can I live like that from moment to moment without the mind taking you a million different... So that's the sadhana bhakti. That's the abhideya. But it begins with this hearing and the transcendental knowledge, either personally from the realized soul or through the medium of books generally. And then trying to live according to that knowledge, you see, and developing the faith in association with others who are practicing and who are living the life. That's where the faith is important. So then these different aspects of knowledge, the object of knowledge, the knower, three factors that motivate action, the senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So once you have the knowledge and you know what the object of knowledge is, and you are the knower, I know that, then you set to work. You know, you work with the mind, the senses, and the soul is the doer, the three constituents of action. And that action can be an action that is, you know, it entangles us more to this material world, depending on what kind of knowledge we're getting. But if we're getting knowledge that's a challenge to all of this material knowledge that we've lived by until we come in touch with Krishna consciousness, then it's just a question of building your faith in this other objective of knowledge and what you want to do, and then being in this an environment where your activities can be engaged in within the realm of bhakti, and that's, you know, the chanting and so forth. And so that's you know, these things is important to understand how we're evolving toward, you know, by our activities toward the understanding of our swarup and to be situated in that. All right, shall I go on? All right. Jnanam karma cha karta cha chidhaiva gunabhedataha prochite gunasankyane yatavat chinutanyapi. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge: action and performer of action. Now hear of them from me. Purport: in the 14th chapter, the three divisions of the modes of material nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion materialistic, and the mode of ignorance conducive to laziness and indolence. All the modes of material nature are binding. They are not sources of liberation. Even in the mode of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men in different modes of material nature were described. In this verse, the Lord says that He wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the three material modes. Okay, so that's introducing another section here. Sarva bhuteshu yenaikam bhavam avyayam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tadjnanam vidnisatvikam. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. Purport: a person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. In all living entities, one spirit soul is there, although they have different bodies in terms of their previous work. As described in the 7th chapter, the manifestation of the living force in every body is due to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. Thus, to see that one superior nature, that living force in every body, is to see in the mode of goodness. That living energy is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. Differences are perceived in terms of the body. Because there are many forms of material existence in conditional life, the living force appears to be divided. Such impersonal knowledge is an aspect of self-realization. So, there's a soul in every body, but that spirit soul is part and parcel of Krishna, so there's every spirit soul. So there's a oneness there. There's a divine spark in every living being. But in the non-human beings, the lower than human beings, anyway, subhuman beings, there's really no chance. The intelligence isn't there, and one is stuck in that self-conception. I'm a dog, I'm a cat, whatever it is, you know. And there isn't that higher intelligence by which you can understand your higher nature and aspire to realize it and tries to live according to that higher nature. Now, normally, especially in this age, most people are living pretty animalistic lives because they're not engaging in genuine dharma. You know, that famous verse from the Hitopadesh, Aharan hindra bhayamaitanangsha samanyameta pushabi naranam. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nehina pashabiya naranam. That human beings and animals share these basic functions: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But for a human being, the distinguishing factor is dharma. And if there's a life without genuine dharma, then it's no better than polished animal life. It may look like human life, but it's really just animal life. So that's and as the ages go by, it becomes more and more prominent that most people are leading simply animal lives. You know, in this age especially. And you can see the danger of it because, you know, that the human beings are using their superior intelligence to serve their lower animalistic propensities. Who can deny it? You know, they're just look at the world today. So many people armed to the teeth, and you know, dominating other people, and genocide here and there, and lies and cheating. You know, it's all very, very animalistic. And within this environment, we're trying to be the countervailing force, Krishna's representatives. You just read, you know, the reign of Yudhishthir or Parikshit and some of these other wonderful kings, Prithu, you know, and of course Ram Raja, right? So the Ram Raja it's such a relief. Can you imagine if the leader of you know, who had real power had no other concern but the welfare of the people, you know, not exploiting and prancing around, you know, because I'm on the top of the heap, you know, it's crazy. So that ultimately Prabhupada had that in mind, you know, to help humanity at large by spreading this Krishna consciousness. And he would often say it's the only hope for humanity. But he was realistic, you know. Ishopanishad, he wrote that when he was in India. That book was written, serialized in his Back to Godhead, Ishopanishad. And, you know, I was the 50s and maybe the early 60s. Prabhupada was publishing that. And he was seeing, you know, he was aware of what was going on in the world. The Soviet Union and the United States are armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, and it even mentions them in the books there, in the book of the Ishopanishad. And everyone was afraid. I was afraid. I was growing up as soon as I learned about the atom bombs, and we see in the movies sometimes, you know, atomic bomb tests, you know, and oh my God. And it's more dangerous now than ever before. We have to get serious. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's very dangerous. All right, let's go on. All right, so he's going through the different modes, kind of knowledge. Sarvabhuteshu yenaikam. Oh, did we do that one already? Okay. Patakvena tu yajnanam. Nana bhavan patag vidhan. Veti sarveshu bhuteshu. Tadhyanam vidnirajasam. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. So seeing the one quality of spirit soul in everyone, that's the mode of goodness now, seeing all the distinctions. Purport: the concept that the material body is the living entity, and that with the destruction of the body the consciousness is also destroyed, is called knowledge in the mode of passion. According to that knowledge, bodies differ from one another because of the development of different types of consciousness. Otherwise, there is no separate soul which manifests consciousness. The body is itself the soul, and there is no separate soul beyond the body. According to such knowledge, consciousness is temporary, or else there are no individual souls, but there is an all-pervading soul which is full of knowledge, and this body is a manifestation of temporary ignorance. Or, beyond the body, there is no special individual or supreme soul. All such conceptions are considered products of the mode of passion. So you can easily see if you're a empiricist, you see, and you can say I mean, it just seems fantastical that this whole body is just working on the influence of one little atomic particle, and they don't see it. You can't see it. You can't measure it. So there's all kinds of philosophical concoctions that try to support this idea that life comes from matter, which Prabhupada was always fighting against. That's really the alternative. Is there a soul that animates? Is there a God who controls? Or is everything just arising up from the soup, over a long, long time, and the different atoms hit each other? And that's the demonic view. If you in the 16th chapter, what do they say? Jagadahu anisharam aparaspada sambhutam kamadit kama hoitakam. The first line, I forget. Anyway, but basically that there's no Ishvara. That it's just chance, attraction and repulsion, the particles get together, and after a long, long, long time, there's a little paramecium, and then a long, long, long time, they get together, and gradually, it's silly. If you think about it, the human body itself is proof of God. The complexity and all the things that can go wrong, and they have to go right just so that you can, feel normal and healthy. Just think about how precise it is. I mean, how to design an electric car probably takes 30 engineers, right, to figure out the whole thing. But that's nothing compared to the complexity of the human body or any body. So where did all that intelligence come from? Obviously, the supremely intelligent Lord. It's obvious to anyone who's a little intelligent. All right, that's now the activity in the mode, knowledge in the mode of ignorance. This will be interesting. Yat tu Krishna vade ekasmin karye saktamahaitukam atatvarta vadalpancha tattam samudaritam. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport, the, quote, knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance. It's interesting, knowledge in the mode of ignorance. Because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of Scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond the body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. And knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is the product of the mode of passion. And knowledge concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So you can see how important the books are, the books of knowledge, right? And we had that very nice program last night. You were here? Yeah. They presented and they saw so many people who had become interested somehow in the books, and they were standing there, And it's kind of, light from the sun going through the thick gloom of a big fog, when people get attracted to it, and they're interested in buying books and hopefully reading them. So we should take full advantage of the opportunity we have. We have the books, you have the internet. If you press the right buttons, you can go to the right sites, and then you can get so much knowledge. Kirtans you can hear, some beautiful sayings. So that opportunity is there. But that so-called knowledge, which is in the mode of ignorance, that's where the demons come in. And some of them are very skilled at using, the propaganda and so forth in order to bewilder people, to get followers, blame this one and that one for their problems, And it's just, it's predicted in the Bhagavatam. You read the 12th canto, how the age of Kali goes down and down and down, like that. So we should try to do as much as we can to slow the degradation, help as many people as possible, and then get out. Don't come back. 23. Niyatam sangarahitam aragadveshatakritam apalaprepsuna karma yattat sattvikam. Okay, now we're in action. That action, which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruited results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Purport: regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Well, that's quite a formula there. But it's basically actions performed in Krishna consciousness. This idea of seeing oneself as, like Prabhupada often use that analogy of the parts of the body, like the hand, right? The hand is, if it's a healthy hand, it's very submissive. You have some desire, and the hand goes into, I want to do this. It's doing what I want, right? If suddenly the hand becomes paralyzed, or you get palsy, you can't, then it's useless as a hand. So we are Krishna's meant to be Krishna's hands. That's why he's known as Rishikesh. These acts are Krishna's hands. They should be used for his service, right? So that mentality that we're part of a whole, and that we're persons and we're servants of the Supreme Person. That's bhakti. The more that you act in that mentality and take pleasure in bringing pleasure to Krishna with these hands. Like we had this thing with the garland makers. We lost a garland maker. I don't know if it's the same garland, the Thursday Ace. She's long gone. She was, I don't know if you read the newsletter, but there was a little request that someone step forward to make garlands on Thursday, because they lost their Thursday garland maker. So, that's a great opportunity. You're making this garland. It's not for you. Your perfection is that it's nicely done so that they offer it to the deity. Then you come to see the deity and say, oh, I made that garland. That's where you get your pleasure. Oh, Krishna looks so beautiful in that garland that I made. Not that I want my garland. It's nice. I'll give it to my girlfriend. She'll like me better. That's a perversion of it. But that's the kind of activity. You're taking pleasure and giving pleasure to Krishna. That's the whole, the Holy Grail. To always take pleasure in giving pleasure to Krishna. There's this wonderful phrase I memorized years ago. You'll never hear anyone else quote it, but it's great. It goes, Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. I should put that into a little, motto, rhyming. Bhajaniya means the worshipable Padama Purusha, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sukha Matra, only the happiness of that Supreme Person, Swasukatvam, is where I take my happiness. That's the definition of bhakti. That's an expansion of Anyabilashita Shunyam. So that's as opposed to the totally self-centered thing. Well, when I can please my senses and my ego, then I'm happy. Otherwise, I'm going to get I'll get that guy who or whatever. Become angry, and when you can't express their anger, it turns inside. You become depressed. That's also a mode of ignorance. So, but mode of pure happiness is to always taking pleasure, even if you can't directly help, just to hear about my wonderful Lord's activities, and chant them. Remember Prahlad's famous line is near the end of his prayers. He's saying, I have no problem. Naibod vijay, not ud vijay. I'm not at all disturbed ever. Naibod vijay padadoratya vaitaranyas, because I've already crossed over the ocean of Vaitaranya. I'm with you in the spiritual world. And any time I want, while my body's still here, I can immerse my consciousness in an ocean of nectar by just chanting your glories. Tadvirya Gayana, singing them. Gayana Mahamrita, the great ocean of nectar. So what do I have a problem for? But then he says, Shoche, I'm lamenting. What are you lamenting for? these poor souls. I'm lamenting for these poor, not mudas, vimudas, total fools, who have turned away from you, and instead of drinking that nectar of your glories and service, they're trying to enjoy this maya sukhaya, this illusory, ever-fleeting happiness. Remember my favorite verse? Intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures that come from the senses contacting their objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery and have a beginning and an end, so the wise do not delight in them. Realizing, like I see people still smoking after all these years. It's hazardous to your health. My health is, anyway, it's just what the poor people on the street, they have maybe a little cigarette they take. It's really tragic, But someone who's intelligent said, boy, I'm glad I'm not smoking anymore. I'm glad I gave that up when I was a kid. And because you can see, and I know from the hospital I worked in, like so many, emphysema, you can't breathe. We had this lady here. You remember her, Padmavati? I don't know if you were here at that time. She passed in 2011. She came, she joined. She was 50. She'd been a lifetime of smoking. She had COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's common for smokers after a certain period of time. But she was a sincere devotee. She got initiated and everything. She would come to my class. She would be the only one sometimes. And I didn't say it to you because I just knew other people would come. And I can't give a class to just one lady, Of course, I know they're out there. So it's not just one. But so she would drag other people to come. She would get somebody to come. Anyway, that was a long time ago. But it came a point, where it got worse and worse. She had to bring a bottle of oxygen with her, Of course, she wasn't smoking as a devotee, but the results of a lifetime of smoking. And finally, she calls me up. I'm going to the hospital. I said, "Oh, what's the matter? I can't breathe." So we went there, and it was the time, and we started chanting for her. It's quite a story. I remembered who I was with Vijayendrananda. He would always be there when the devotees passed, and he would spend time with Radhanath. He spent days with him and talking with him and everything. So we were together and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's kind of a tune, the original tune, which is the passing tune, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So that we were chanting. And then who comes in? These are people you don't know. You remember Brajabadu. She herself was in her 90s and she was with Ladli. Ladli was taking care of her, and they both came to chant for her. They stayed a few minutes and Brajabadu had to leave. So I'm there, and she had, Phyllis, Padmavati had called her children. They were one daughter and a couple of sons, and they were scattered around the country, but they flew in because they knew it was. So they're there, and we were chanting, and then finally one of them comes in and said, "Okay, we didn't say it this way, but pull the plug," and said, "Okay, can we keep chanting because it's really important?" I said, "No, this is a private thing for the family." I said, "Oh, what are we going to do?" So we walked down the corridor for a few doors, and we sat in a waiting room there, myself and Rajendranandana. So after maybe 10, 15 minutes, one of the sons comes in and said, "You better come back in there because she's not leaving." She's breathing. She wasn't peacefully leaving, surrendering to it. So we came back and we chanted 5 minutes, and she was gone, But it's it's a lesson. I've been to many of those because I can chant. So people ask me to come, and I've seen devotees, and it's always it's positive in the sense that the devotees are all chanting around, so that they have a very good chance of actually remembering Krishna at that time. You can imagine that's the ideal. Prabhupada showed that's what he had, as many devotees as possible. And we were in the room there in the Krishna Balaram temple chanting for him. And so that's the payoff. If you have a nice society around you of devotees who you work with, and you're friends with, then they're going to be there for you. So anyway, oh Krishna. All right. So this was, which one did we just read? 23? All right, so that's in the mode of goodness. Mode of passion. Yattu kamepsana karma sahankare navapunaha kriyate bahulayasam tat rajasamudaditam. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. Anubandham chayam hingsam anapeksha chapaurusham mohadarabhyate karma tat yat tat tamasamuchyate. That action, performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport: one has to give account of one's actions to the state or to the agents of the Supreme Lord, called the Yamadutas. Irresponsible work is destructive because it destroys the regulative principles of scriptural injunction. It is often based on violence and is distressing to other living entities. Such irresponsible work is carried out in the light of one's personal experience. This is called illusion. And all such illusory work is a product of the mode of ignorance. And it's not mentioned here, but there's actually people whose motive is to hurt others. Paraduka Sukhi, you know, it's called Schadenfreude. It came up during the war, World War II. It's German for taking pleasures in others' misery. And we see that, you know, these terrorist attacks and things. The whole purpose is to cause as much suffering as possible. You know, then you commit suicide. You think that, they won't get me. That's it. You don't realize you're going to suffer like anything. Can you imagine? Yeah. So and when this mode of ignorance becomes prominent, society becomes hellish. There's so much danger and fear and anger. This society is like that in many respects at this point. Okay, one more at least. Mukta sango nahambadi dhrityutsaha samanvitaha siddhya siddhyo nirvikarah karta sattvika uchyate. Okay, now the doers, these are performers of action. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Purport: a person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. So Prabhupada, you can see how he embodied this. So many difficulties. And you know, you read the biography in India. He had that place at Jhansi. You remember that? I don't know if you read that. But he had a place that was loaned to him. And it was very suitable for a center. And he started the League of Devotees there, which was the precursor to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He had a disciple who was an expert Sanskritist, and he learned some Sanskrit from him. Acharya Prabhakar was his name. And he had some followers there, and they would go out and do Harinam, they would do programs and everything. But he didn't own the place. It was loaned to him. And eventually, the wife of the governor or something wanted to start a ladies' auxiliary, you know, some club or something there. And so he said, "Sorry, Swami, you have to leave. You know, we're going to give this over to the ladies." So that was a bust. Now, I see it as a great good fortune for us, because he was ready to, you know, make that a whole thing in India. You know, he would be preach in England. He would publish the BTG and other thing in English. But if that had been successful, he might not have got on that boat, you know. But anyway, but it was hopeful. So he had to undergo that disappointment, but keep that spiritual master's order in mind. He wants me to preach. He wants me to take sannyas. The taking of sannyas was also a hurdle. Prabhupada was reluctant first because he had his job, the family, all these different things. Anyway, so he finally took vanaprastha, and then he took sannyas, and all his efforts to preach in India really didn't come to anything. And one of the big obstacles was the Gaudiya Math, because his godbrothers, after Bhaktisiddhanta departed, some of them were vying to become the acharya of the Math, or at least of the Gaudiya Math, or at least they would have their own temples, and their own. So it kind of splintered, and they lost their unified preaching spirit. In fact, I was just reading something Prabhupada wrote, his Vrindavan Bhajan. He's sitting in the temple of Radha Damodar, writing this, and he's writing it to his godbrothers. He's chastising them for not preaching, for all simply, breaking up into little, mats, individual mats, and then they had the acharya of one mat, instead of really trying to expand the mission, just trying to benefit from, So that was famous bhajan, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada alone took on the task of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. And he was crying. He was at that writer's appearance place, that famous, and he's chanting and crying. And so, why are you crying? Well, my spiritual master has given me this impossible mission, but I have to try to do it. So he undertook it, do or die. And that's really the spirit that he tried to instill in us also. Okay, that was the mode of goodness, right? That was what, 23? 27, okay. Now, do you notice how short these purports are? I think Prabhupada is because you go to the beginning of the book, we get these long purports in the second chapter. He's sensing, I got to get this book finished, so he's very concise. All right. Ragi karma pala prepsur. Lubdho hingsatmako shuchi. Harshashokantata karta. Rajasak padikirtitaha. The worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. What's left for the mode of ignorance? Purport: a person is too much attached to a certain kind of work, or to the result, because he has too much attachment for materialism or hearth and home, wife and children. Such a person has no desire for higher elevation in life. He is simply concerned with making this world as materially comfortable as possible. He is generally very greedy, and he thinks that anything attained by him is permanent and never to be lost. Such a person is envious of others and prepared to do anything wrong for sense gratification. Therefore, such a person is unclean, and he does not care whether his earning is pure or impure. He's very happy if his work is successful, and very much distressed when his work is not successful. Such is the worker in the mode of passion. And you see, from these big billionaires who have somehow manipulated the material energy so that they just have this more wealth than they could possibly spend in a lifetime, down to the guy just trying to make ends meet, living from paycheck to paycheck, and at the victimized by greedy landlords and Amazon, whatever, helpless. That's all in the mode of passion on both ends. Those few who are able to make so much money and live off many others, and the vast majority who are just trying to exist, but they don't know anything else besides that. It's all in the mode of passion, and it can easily slip into the mode of ignorance. All right, so we'll pick up tomorrow on text 28. I left a little time. All right, here's the. I don't know if it was this month where they have the Sunday feast about determination. I think that maybe when the Rantura comes for his month. So I think I gave this already, but it's a refresh. The Chataka bird. Chataka bird is famous for just drinking the water that comes from the cloud. That's how it lives. Virachaya mahidandam dinabando dayangva gatadihana babotta kachadanyama masti nipatuta shatakoti nimalangva navambas tadapikilapayodaks stuyate chatakena. The Chataka subsists on rain it catches in midair, And so it's always praying to the cloud to send its fare. But though that cloud may send a thunderbolt instead of rain, that bird continues praying fervently despite the pain. Just like the Chataka, I fix my mind upon one goal, and that is you, O Lord, most kind to every fallen soul. So whether it is punishment you send or mercy sweet, I'll always pray to you for service to your lotus feet. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.